So, I've been sick like you wouldn't believe, which made this video take a lot longer than I expected. But here it is, the Iswitch to iPhone finale. And not a moment too soon, because as I was working on this video, Apple announced iOS 16, where the 6S and the 7 will be losing their long-term support. So, I've been on the iPhone now for about 3 months, and it's been a wild ride for me. So let's hop right into it. Okay, first things first, I wanted to discuss the performance a little bit because given the age of the phone, that might be your first concern. So to get an idea, I ran Geekbench on the iPhone and my old LG G7 Thin Q, and I'll put the results over here. What we can see is that the iPhone has single core performance within range, I'd say, of the newer phone, which just shows how advanced Apple's silicon was even back then. And that lead has continued to today, where Apple has some very impressive in-house chips, with the M1 and the newly announced M2 coming out as well. And Apple has some of the best performing phones on the market because of this lead in that regard. Where the iPhone does struggle a bit in comparison is in the multi-core, where the LG G7 takes the lead there mainly just because it has more cores to work with. Now, that only comes into play when you're doing some heavy task on your phone, maybe playing a game, editing a photo or a video, or doing some like extreme or heavier multitasking. And for my use case, that doesn't come into play too much. I mostly use my phone for emails or for Reddit or to do a Google search or something like that. I don't usually hit my phone too hard. And so for me, the single core performance is what usually matters in the day-to-day task. And so in that regard, this old phone has been perfectly fine for me. It doesn't feel slow due to iOS 15 in any way. It feels responsive for my basic tasks. And in that regard, it's still a great phone. Next, let's talk about the hardware and design a little bit. At first, I didn't think this would be too necessary, but then I realized that the SE actually uses a similar body to the old phone, so I think it's still worth talking about the design a bit. First, I got used to the fingerprint sensor on the front. It was a little challenging at first, but I got used to it. And if you still use mask often, as is common where I live, it's actually pretty nice having a fingerprint sensor as opposed to Face ID or facial recognition, which the mask gets in the way of. So, I like it. With regards to having the fingerprint sensor on the front or back, that's kind of just personal preference, to be honest. They each have their advantage and disadvantages. For example, having it on the front makes it easier if your phone's sitting on the table and you just want to like check a message really quick. Having it on the back is nicer for when you're taking your phone out of your pocket, for example. So it's just personal preference at that point. Second, the massive bezels on the top and bottom of the display. At first, I thought they would be annoying. And while it does give the phone a much older feel to it, given the push to bezel-less displays in modern phones, I got used to it pretty quick, and as a benefit, you don't get that stupid notch anymore. I actually had gotten so used to looking in one of the corners for the clock that when I first switched to this, I couldn't find the clock in the notification bar because it's right in the center of the display, which is now just natural to me. Finally, I'll be a little quick on a few more because they're not super important. The display is good. Of course, the newer displays are better, but this has no problem. It gets bright enough in direct sunlight, for example. I would get like a few stutters at some points, but that might just be because of the older chip that we talked about. 2, the lightning cable. I don't care for it too much. When it came out and Android was using the micro B cable, This was a huge improvement over that, but being limited to USB 2.0 speeds is really tiring when you're transferring a lot of photos or videos or something from the phone. So I don't like it too much, but I believe the EU is actually passing a law that might force the new devices to use Type-C, so maybe that'll change in the future. We'll have to see. 3, I really like the hardware mute switch on the side of the phone here. I actually use notification sounds because on my Android I always just had it to vibrate. Now I'll turn the sounds on at night or on the weekend, and then I can just turn it off when I go to work or when I go out. So I really like the hardware mute switch. 4, I miss the SD card slot. Now, true, a lot of new Android phones also don't have the SD card slot, but this is for them as much as it is for the iPhone. I like SD card slots. I like being able to plug in an SD card and quickly transfer files or just have extra space on my phone, which if you get the base model of some phones, you might actually really need that extra space. So I like SD card slots. 5, I'll just talk about the camera. It is older. It's not as sharp as a newer phone. It's not as color accurate as a newer phone, but it worked fine enough. I could take the pictures that meant something to me day to day, and that's all I really want. So no complaints on the camera, to be honest. Now on the software side of things, this section has been the hardest for me to write. Now, first things first, I want to say that I do not have a MacBook, obviously. I don't have an Apple Watch. I don't have AirPods. I don't have an Apple ecosystem in any way. All I can talk about is the phone and using the phone. Now, some of these things might sound like obvious to an Android user, and some of them might sound petty to an Apple user, and maybe some of them you'll even agree with. But I'm going to do my best to balance my good and bad points a bit, to not harp on anything too much. Because there are good things and there are bad things. So the first thing I will say is that the new user experience is really good. To the point where I could see someone recommending an iPhone to a less techie friend or relative just for that. They spend the first few weeks slowly sending you tip messages that you'll click, and they'll open up the Tips app and show you a feature or a few features, like common gestures to navigate or more detail on the camera app, for example. And because they do this slowly without fully just overwhelming you right at the beginning, it makes it really approachable to me. And if you live near an Apple store, I believe they have classes on using features of the phones that I believe is free, but I've never been to an Apple store to confirm that. From what I could see on the website, they offer these sort of classes or lessons on things. And so as I said, those first few weeks of the Switch are really good. You're learning the new features. It was a little annoying at the very beginning where I don't know how to do anything that I know how to do by pure muscle memory on my old phone. But it got better pretty quick for about a month. And then after a month, it was the little things that are just so natural to me on Android that are not so easy on Apple that really started to annoy me. The first one is just in the UI. I really hate that you cannot have gaps between apps on home screens. I like to have all of my apps that I use at the bottom of the home page so that I can easily click them. You cannot have those gaps on iPhone. The best I can find is having a widget or the apps you don't use at the top to push them down. But it just feels pointless to me. Let me have spaces so that I can have the apps the way I want them to happen. For something good, Airdrop is actually a really good feature. I remember a long time ago, it might have been like the S3 or the S4 days, where Samsung had this like beam feature where you would hold the phones like back to back and it would use the NFC chip to communicate between the phones and you could transfer like photos and stuff. But almost no one used it because no one wanted to hold their phone back to back like this to transfer stuff. Airdrop is not like that at all. It's actually good. It uses the Bluetooth and the Wi-Fi in the phone to connect to the other phones and create a sort of like peer-to-peer connection to quickly transfer files between them. So you can transfer between other phones, to your MacBook, to other iPads, so on. And actually, it's really quick. You can send a lot of photos or videos via AirDrop rather quickly. I could not find anything on like the max speeds though, which was a little disappointing, but AirDrop's really good because you also don't need to like share a phone number or anything. You can easily share photos in a group without having to give your phone number to people. I do wish there was a way to auto send photos via AirDrop to maybe an album. So maybe you set up a photo album for your trip and you just have all photos you receive go straight into that album. I think that would be really nice, but as a whole, AirDrop is really nice. I hope that one day we get a version that's not a brand exclusive, though. Speaking of photo albums, I don't like the Apple Photos app that much. The way Google Photos is set up is it's most recent at the top. You have the day set, and then below that you have the photos in a group. And then the next day set and photos in a group. At least the way mine is set up. Now maybe you can change this on Apple, but the way it was set up by default, and I could not figure out how to change it, was the most recent last, and you can group the photos a bit by day, month, or year, but it doesn't do the clear divides by rows that I grew to like because it let me quickly go back to old dates. Instead, it just has them like all grouped together. And I'm sure if you got used to it, if it's what you've always used, I'm sure it's perfectly fine and easy to navigate for you. But I just gotten so used to the Google Photos app layout that it just makes intuitive sense to me to easily find stuff. Now for a good. iPhone handles security really well. Now, I do want to say that as far as I know, some of the security features are in newer Android versions. My most recent experience with Android has been Android 9. So keep that in mind. Let's talk about some of the security features I like. The way it handles permissions is really good. You can give things permissions for while you're using it for only once. You can ask apps not to track you across other devices or other apps. If you have like a messaging app and you want to send a photo, you can only give the messaging app access to that photo as opposed to giving it access to your entire photo library. And I just liked these security features. They're simple little things that you can do to kind of increase your own privacy in small ways. And so I really like the privacy features of the iPhone. Next, the notification center. This is something that I'll say is mixed because you can set up some really nice profiles to organize your notifications for you. And if you dive into that and set it up properly, it can be really good to have a work profile, a home profile, and stuff like that, and hide things that you don't necessarily want to see while you're at work. But I don't like the notification bar setup too much in that it has like the recent urgent section and then it has a notification center low priority section that it moves the notifications to after a while. I kind of got used to them just being stuck there, and I got used to like leaving notifications open on the notification bar as like a reminder for me to respond to an email or a message. Maybe again, that's just what I got used to, but I didn't like the notification setup too much because of that. And I gotta do another minus really quick. Siri feels miles behind the Google Assistant to me. I remember when Siri came out, it was supposedly really good. Again, I never had an iPhone, but it was really good and it was really advanced, especially compared to Google's early offerings. It was very far ahead. And that kind of stuck in my mind, where the Siri assistant was supposed to be really advanced compared to Apple. But that was just not my experience at all. I would ask it a question, and it would have the text preview laid out exactly how I said it. And it just said, I don't know, and it wouldn't do like a Google search for me or something. It didn't make much sense to me. And I also had some times where it feels like it's slow. It has to communicate to a server. Because one of the big uses I have is setting timers while I'm cooking. I asked it to set a timer for a few minutes one time, and it just like started a loading screen and said like, hold on a minute or please wait. And I'm like, you shouldn't have to do that to set a timer. It honestly drove me crazy. So it just doesn't feel like Siri is as advanced as Google is at recognizing your request. Now for a good thing. The Shortcuts app is really nice. It's an automation app where you can set up certain if this then that like commands. And I really liked how simple the UI was, but also how complex you could make things if you really wanted to. For mine, they were usually very simple, like when I get to work, open up the Teams app so that I can catch up on what I need to do for the day. Or I have another one that auto notifies me when my battery hits 80% so I can unplug it and kind of save the battery health a bit. But if you look online, there's shared ones that are really complex and really handy if you have you can use Shazam to try and identify songs, and then it'll auto connect to your Apple Music and add it, or it'll copy it so that you can search for the song later. Like, there are some really complicated automations that are set up on it. And so Shortcuts is a really nice app. So I could probably keep going on with that for a few more minutes, but there's some other stuff that I want to discuss that I don't think fully fits into that sort of pros and cons setting that I was doing before. I did have some challenges just in muscle memory I had, but that's going to happen. And I had some bugs. One bug that I would have repeatedly was when you'd swipe down to do the search bar, the keyboard would be there, but it would not display. Basically, I could type by pure muscle memory, but the keyboard itself would not show in the bottom, which normally I just lock the screen and unlock it and try again, and the keyboard would load up fine. So not quite sure why that was happening, but it was a small bug. But one of the hardest things to me were the kind of features that you have on Android that you don't really use often. They almost feel like a gimmick at times, but when you want them, there's nothing really better. The two examples I'll give is one of them is Wi-Fi sharing and the other one is multitasking. By Wi-Fi sharing, basically the LG has a feature that's like hotspot, but as like a Wi-Fi extender. You connect to another Wi-Fi and then you can hotspot that Wi-Fi through your phone. Well, why is that useful? And to be honest, it's normally not. I don't use it at home or anything. But when I'm at a hotel, for example, and I just connect my phone to the Wi-Fi and then run a VPN and then hotspot it or something. Or when at work, the Wi-Fi at work can be finicky sometimes. So I can connect my phone to it, which is typically more stable for some reason, and then connect my laptop to my phone. Again, it's not something that comes up daily, but when I need it, when I'm at a hotel and I just want to connect to the Wi-Fi really quick or something, without having to connect to my laptop directly, it's just a very nice feature to have. And the other one is multitasking. There's no split screen feature on the iPhone. You can get that if you go to the iPad, but it's not on the iPhone. And again, that's not something I use often. The main time I use split screen is when I go on a trip and I'm going to be on the bus for, a few hours. It's really nice to be able to put, say, like split screen a YouTube video and a web browser. I can have the YouTube video on top and I can read articles or do whatever I want. And that's just not available on the iPhone. And when I went on vacation with the iPhone, it was something that I actually really missed because I was on the bus for like 6 hours. Now, I could keep going, but I kind of think you see where this is going, so it's time to answer the question. Will I be switching to iPhone? And actually, at first, I was considering it, but in the end, I've decided no. It's definitely been an interesting experience trying it. I understand why so many people really enjoy their iPhones and really stick with them. But between the intuitive features that did not feel intuitive to me, the lack of the one-off features that I've grown really fond of and like, and that's not even to mention Apple's hostility towards right to repair and small repair shops that can't even do a simple battery swap unless you consider the Apple self-repair program adequate, which I don't believe it is, which will be a topic for another time. To me, it's kind of about what you're used to. And I'm used to Android. So when I upgrade my phone, I will be going back to Android. So thank you for watching. That'll be the end of this video. I hope you found this journey as interesting as I did. If you're interested in more from me, I have some more ideas in the works, so consider sticking tuned for that. But that'll be all for this, so thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.